Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is November 9th. It is currently 1:48 a.m. It's been quite the election night. So many results across the nation, so many things that have surprised people. And we have seen that overall, throughout the night, there has been a lot of upsets that people did not expect and some things that did not happen that people were hoping for. But there is a specific race, a race that seems to indicate that there was voter intimidation, a case that seems to indicate that something untoward was done that we want to highlight because it's not going to get national news, because it seems the local news media is rejecting every opportunity to tell voters about it. So you need to know. And we're going to talk about that in just 1 second. But first, we do want to mention, if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we welcome you. We thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to hear what you have to say in your tweets, your texts, and your phone calls from anywhere in the world to talk about the issues that matter to you, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in free speech. Even if you don't agree, even if the internet overlords don't agree, even if your country does not agree, we believe in the First Amendment, your right to free speech, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope you will join us. So let me jump right in, and it's 1:48 in the morning. It is early. I am tired. It has been a long day with a lot of emotional ups and downs. But I want to go over something that I think is important, something that we first mentioned to you. We put out a tweet at 7:49 p.m. on November 8th. So there were still about an hour and 15 minutes of voting available in New York State for the New York 52nd District. Now, for people who are not aware, the New York 52nd District is a race for the New York State Senate. Leah Webb, a former Binghamton City Councilwoman, and Rich David, a former the city of Binghamton mayor, were up against each other. Now, this is important to understand because the fact is that New York State is a mess. That is a fact. The lines being drawn because of the redistricting due to the exodus of over 1 million individuals from New York State caused all of the lines at the state and federal level to be redrawn. Now, that process is not done. In 2023, it will be restarted. The lines, mostly for the state level elected districts, will be redrawn yet again because there is too much gerrymandering. It is unconstitutional. It is nullifying the votes of voters. That's a fact, and that is going to happen. But in the New York 52nd State Senate District, in the race between Leah Webb and Rich David, something exceptional happened, and I think it needs to be addressed. Now, for full disclosure, we do know Mayor Rich David. We've known him for several years. We know Councilwoman Leah Webb. We've known her for years. In fact, we've done interviews with Councilwoman Leah Webb way back when she was on City Council. So we are familiar with all of the candidates in this race. The congressional lines were redrawn, and many would say there is some manipulation there to include very heavily Democratic left-leaning districts like Ithaca and Tompkins County that overweighted the election and nullified the votes of many voters. That's something you can dispute. That is a question. That is something that will be addressed in January of 2023 up until April of 2023, when the lines are going to be redrawn. But I want you to know that, to understand that at 7:49 p.m. on November 8th, we said, hearing sources say that Citizen Action, a far-left organization, are in crowds just outside of the exclusion zone in the southern tier. Now, when we say exclusion zone, we mean the voting exclusion zone of approximately 150 feet from any polling site for anyone who is advocating for a candidate. This is possible voter intimidation. Waiting for confirmation from the Board of Elections, that's Leah Webb supporters, if accurate. How can that affect the election? So we made several statements there, and we tried to verify this. Now, our original source was incredibly credible, and we had reason to believe that this was true, that this was factual. We then contacted the Board of Elections of Broome County to try and find out further details. We reached one of the individuals answering the phones at 7:49 p.m., but we were not able to get a commissioner nor deputy commissioner of the Broome County elections onto the phone to give us an absolute confirmation or denial of this rumor. After that fact, we went out that night for various election activities, including our opportunity to speak to Mark Molinaro, who is running for the New York 19th District for Congress, which he did subsequently, we believe, won. The unofficial results show him having a 5,000 vote lead, giving him about 51% of the vote. Again, that's unofficial at this moment. But during the night, we were able to contact three additional credible sources with impeccable credentials that were able to confirm for us that, in fact, there was a complaint that was made to the Broome County Board of Elections, that complaint was also forwarded to every local news media organization in the Central Southern Tier New York region, and that none of the news media conveyed that information to the public, and that the information was conveyed long before we found out about it at 7:49 p.m. This is something that may have impacted elections. So we do not say this with any lack of understanding of the impact, but it has been confirmed 4 separate times from 4 separate individuals of high credibility. Now, let's be clear on what we understand and what we know. And I want to go through this with you. What we know for sure is that on election day, individuals, some of whom may have been identified as either being part of Citizen Action and or Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, also known as PLOT, went to various polling locations throughout the New York 52nd State Senate District. That district includes Tompkins counties, with the city of Ithaca in particular being specific, and also the city of Binghamton in Broome County, which are the 2 largest cities in that district. This is critical. These 2 cities would be the majority of the vote. And so it's important that anything that happens there would affect the election. The allegation, as we first initially heard about it, said something happened. Let us give you the details we were able to confirm. Earlier in the day, very much earlier in the day, there were groups of individuals who claimed to be associated with either Citizen Action or Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow that were standing approximately 1 to 5 feet outside of the exclusion zone. What is the exclusion zone? In New York State, there is an exclusion zone that you have to be more than 150 feet away from an election polling site to be able to advocate for a candidate. So you could have a sign 151 feet away. You could stand and talk to people advocating for a candidate 151 feet away. as long as you were more than the exclusion zone away from the actual polling, you are allowed to campaign for a candidate. There were several groups of individuals, multiple individuals in each group throughout Broome County and throughout Tompkins County, in the city of Binghamton and in the city of Ithaca, that were at multiple voting locations. We believe in the city of Binghamton, they were located predominantly on the north side of Binghamton, a low income area that also happens to be predominantly minority. And they were in these locations and they were speaking to individuals as they were going to go and vote. Now, this is what we know for a fact. And we also know for a fact, confirmed from multiple sources, that these individuals were very aggressive, that these individuals would approach people who are going to vote and to forcefully suggest that they should vote for Leah Webb, that they should vote for Democrats in general. There are some other allegations, which we have not been able to confirm, that they were being handed artificial or incorrect ballots. We have been told that some individuals in these groups offered money to individuals to vote in a specific manner. We cannot confirm that, but allegations do exist of that. What we do know for a fact is that these individuals were very aggressive. They encroached on the exclusionary zone. They were well within that range that is excluded by law, and they were advocating for a candidate very vocally and very loudly. This is something that is a violation of law. And we know that the Board of Elections was notified of this occurring multiple times in multiple locations. And in fact, the Board of Elections had several, we believe, deputy commissioners and eventually commissioners go down to actually tell these groups to move back, to move away, to get outside of the exclusionary zone that they legally must abide by, to try and calm them down. These groups would then retreat to outside the exclusionary zone and later would re-encroach that exclusionary zone, again breaking the law. This happened, as we understand, multiple times throughout the day, and that they were not impeded in their efforts to try and, well, the word is intimidate the voters, to try and coerce them to vote in a certain manner. Whether that is effective or not is a question that we cannot address. We cannot speak to that. But we do know that there were multiple incursions or violations of the exclusionary zone. We know that they were very vocal. We know that they were very aggressive, and that there were multiple complaints that were made to the election board. We know that a complaint was made and that a member, commissioner of the Board of Elections, reached out to the Leah Webb campaign and asked them to speak to their supporters, to tell them to stand down, to stop violating the law, and to stop intimidating, scaring, coercing, whatever the word you would like to use, to be able to confront voters before they went and voted. We don't know how effective the Leah Webb campaign was in stopping this, but every source notified us that this was something they were told because it went to the extreme. That Democrats were telling the Leah Webb campaign to cease and desist this action and to notify their supporters to cease and desist these actions because it could be considered voter intimidation. That's what we know for sure. We also can confirm that notification of these events and these complaints were sent out to local news media. Now, we also can confirm that local news media did not convey this to the public. They did not inform them of this. They did not cover this story. Why they did not do so, I cannot answer. I do not have that information. I do know they knew this was happening, and they did not tell anyone. Now, this is a big deal. This is an important deal. Now, when we look at this, as you can see here, as of 1:16 a.m., the national results are showing that Republicans have a significant lead, that the red wave that had been predicted all year long actually came about. Now, not all the results are final yet. There are multiple races where Republicans have lost, public, well-known races, like in Georgia, which has been called for Senator Warnock over Herschel Walker. We know that. But at the same time, we do know that many races have, in fact, gone towards Republicans. Earlier in the day, we had mentioned that we saw a prediction of 237 seats for the Republicans in the House. We suggested that there would be 53 seats won by Democrats in the Senate, and that we were looking for 27 governors to win across the United States. Again, we will show you that the results as of 1:16, according to 538, currently show that we are well on the way to that prediction coming true. It may not, but it seems to be going towards that direction. But that doesn't answer the question about the New York 52nd District. The unconfirmed results as being presented by New York State itself, and I will show you that. Links will be in the description so you can see this for yourself and make your own decisions. But we can see that in the state Senate race for the 52nd District, in Broome County, former Mayor Rich David had 58% of the vote. In Cortland County, former Mayor Rich David had 57% of the vote. And in Tompkins County, which was added due to the gerrymandering, which will be corrected in 2023, in this gerrymandered district, Leah Webb won Tompkins County by 70% of the vote. That made the difference. That changed the race to give her a lead overall of approximately 1,600 votes to win 49.8% of the vote versus 48.4% of the vote. That's a big deal. But we have to ask a question. Based on the confirmed facts that we know, that they were going out and intimidating and potentially, possibly, trying to bribe voters to vote Democrat for Leah Webb, doing that throughout 2 different counties of New York at least. Is it possible that 1,500 people were scared away and or were convinced to vote for Leah Webb because of the actions of these groups? And if so, is that not voter nullification? Is that not voter intimidation? Is that not a crime? Now, at the very least, this should have been investigated on November 8th. Police, and just like in Arizona, the FBI should have been notified because this is a violation of law, election law. It is one of the strongest laws we have because we need confidence in our elections. But as far as we are aware, neither state nor local police were notified. The FBI were not notified by any party about this. No action was taken besides from the county Board of Elections. But yet the County Board of Elections, after multiple warnings, after multiple in-person warnings, trying to stop these groups and trying to maintain the legal boundary that is set, they were unable to prevent these individuals from affecting voters. And the county did not notify state police. They did not notify local police, as we are able to understand at this time. So it's quite possible 1,500 voters, maybe more, were either potentially bribed, potentially scared away, or potentially coerced into voting for a candidate that otherwise would not win in a gerrymandered district that is going to be reset in 2023. That's not a fair election, not by a long shot. Let's be clear. Candidates lose. Candidates we like or dislike may win or lose any election. We have lost elections before. That happens. We understand that. That's not what we're talking about. This isn't about whether a Republican won this race or lost this race. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that voters may have been nullified or intimidated, a violation of law, and they were allowed to do so without any corrective action. That this is a standard that has been set, and that is counterproductive to freedom. We could not go to sleep with these confirmations and not notify you because the local news media won't say anything. They had the opportunity to say something earlier in the day to try and soothe the nerves of Americans, to let them know that they could go out and vote, that someone was paying attention, that someone was there to protect them and their vote. And the news media failed to do so. They did not take the opportunity to stand up for the public, which is the purpose of the news media. Instead, they decided to be silent. There are several individuals that we can point to in this that failed. Republicans and Democrats, the leadership, the Democratic and Republican parties failed to notify authorities, to make corrective action, to make sure that voters were not being intimidated nor their votes being nullified through the threat of violence. We see a failure in our society that these organizations, potentially Citizen Action and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, were able to even think that they could go out and intimidate voters in this manner to try and change the results of an election, possibly multiple elections. We know that they were doing so on behalf of the Leah Webb campaign for state senate. There may have been additional races that they were trying to affect the outcome on, and they may have had some amount of success. We don't know for sure. But we do know that this was targeted towards Leah Webb's campaign, and we do know for sure that Leah Webb's campaign was supported by Citizen Action and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow and the far left. She has long been, since her time in Binghamton's city council, an advocate for the far left, the fringe of the Democratic Party. These are known facts. So there are plenty of people that can be blamed. The question is, what do we do now? We have a news media that failed the public. They did not notify them of this happening, which may have led to a remedy. We know that parties tried to notify the county, and the county board of elections failed the public because this continued to happen throughout the day. We know that no one contacted either state or local police nor the FBI to handle this situation, a failure that may have resulted in nullification of votes or voter intimidation. So there is blame at every level for every party involved. But the fact that it continued means that law enforcement should have been there. Most of all, for our channel, because we are news media, because we do political commentary, because we work alongside many of the members of the press, we hold them to a higher standard. They should have notified the public. They should have made the public aware on November 8th throughout the day that this was happening. We ourselves on this channel should not have received this information initially as a rumor. We should not have received this after the fact at 7:49 p.m. with only an hour and roughly 15 minutes available for voters to possibly take any corrective action. Regardless of what the net result would be in the election, if voters were upset that Leah Webb would allow her supporters to do this, that's on them. Whether they supported that action or they were against it, that's on the voters. but it is the responsibility of the news media to tell the public about what is happening, especially when it is affecting an election. If this were Republicans doing it to Democrats, the Democratic Party would have been screaming. The news media would have covered this. It would have been all over Twitter and social media. There would have been allegations all day long, possibly court or legal actions that would have been taken. We have seen that repeatedly by Democrats across the nation, and yet we did not see that here in New York State. This is a microcosm of what we are seeing across the nation. This is a problem not just for the New York State Senate 52nd District. This is a problem for everyone in America, because what is happening here is happening everywhere, whether it's because of other states seeing the example of New York State and copying it, whether it's because Democrats and others in New York State are leaving the state. There has been a mass exodus for a decade out of New York State, and progressives and Democrats among them have been leaving to go to other states, taking their policies and ideology along with them, including this apparent need to riot and intimidate individuals whenever there is any confrontation that doesn't match up with their feelings and their political ideology. We believe there should be an investigation. We believe that some remedy should be sought, even if that remedy is just that the exclusionary zone should be extended or other conditions set so that groups like Citizen Action, apparently, groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, apparently, cannot be able to do what they have been accused of doing, as we have been able to confirm 4 separate times just on November 8th. Maybe you don't think it's such a big deal until it's your candidate, until it's your election that's being affected, and your community is going to take the negative hit. Then it's important to everyone. Well, we're trying to get ahead of that. Yes, we know Rich David. Yes, we know Leah Webb. Yes, we're a Republican, a conservative Republican channel. That's not why we're doing this. It's not to try and get Rich to win the race. No, what we're trying to do is to prevent intimidation of voters, nullification of voters from ever happening again in this manner. Something needs to be done to correct this, to prevent this from happening again. And we think you, the public, should be aware of that. But we look forward to hearing what you have to say about this. Do you believe that this is voter nullification or voter intimidation when groups of individuals traveling to various polling sites across an entire election district are there trying to advocate for a specific candidate through various means that are very aggressive and potentially illegal? Do you think that there should be something different in the law to prevent that? Or are you okay with that happening? And are you okay with that happening because your side won? It's a really interesting question that needs to be addressed. It is a question for the United States going forward and New York State right now. And we are waiting for the final confirmation from Broome County's Board of Elections. We've been waiting for that since 7:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 8th. But we do know this happened. The question is, what will we do about it going forward? We're upset. I think you should be upset. But we look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. Thank you. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference. When you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription, you make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can because you deserve no less. Thank you.